What is up, guys? Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be showcasing the brand new Dead Man's Tale exotic scout rifle just added into Destiny 2 via a secret exotic quest within Season of the Chosen. But just how good is this new exotic? Well, on this channel we do a little bit more than play a couple Crucible games. What we've done is get an entire 6-man fire team all utilizing this brand new exotic and taking it through the largest raid in Destiny 2 history, Last Wish, to see how it really performs in an endgame challenge. And so, let's get started. Now, first things first, if you want to get this bread for yourself, check out my complete guide linked up above. Also, all of us in the fire team are using the version of this weapon with random rolls. So, taking a look at this exotic, firstly, the intrinsic perk is Cranial Spike. Chaining precision hits grants bonus damage and quickens reload speed. Well, that seems perfect for damage output. Now, mine in particular does have Outlaw as its random perk. However, if you're really concerned about the PvE role, the best options here would be Vorpal Weapon or 4th times the Charm. We had one teammate with Vorpal Weapon. So, we have the first encounter against Kalli. How does it perform here? Well, initially you're defending your plate against a lot of adds, and against those adds, it's fine. I mean, you can string together some nice headshots, certainly, and the boost to damage is nice because when it gets high enough, you're going to start one-shot body killing the thralls, which is very good, but they do teleport around, and this is actually in a brand new archetype. This is the first 120 rounds per minute scout rifle, which means it's the slowest shooting scout rifle in the game, so maybe not the best against a bunch of adds kind of charging at you. But moving on from there, let's take a look at what it does against Kalli. And in terms of that boss DPS, it's actually not bad. As you continually increase in damage, it's going to cap out at about 40% more damage than what you initially started with. And the Cranial Spike buff that you'll see in the corner of your screen will max out at ×5. So after 5 consecutive headshots, it will just stay there with that 40% damage buff. But not only are you getting a damage increase, you're also getting a reload speed increase, which yet again helps with your damage output. However, there's kind of a trick to reloading this gun if you are versing a bigger boss. You don't want to reload the entire thing, because if you do, your Cranial Spike buff will go away by the time you fully reloaded your gun. Instead, you want to reload just a few different animations. It's 2 rounds per animation, and then you'll have enough to continue firing while maintaining that ×5 buff and your maximum damage. So with all of that said and done, as you can see, we were so close to getting the Kalli 1 phase. We just weren't able to get there, and I think if all of us had the Vorpal Weapon or the 4th times the Charm roll, so in many more weeks when we're able to grind that mission over and over again, then I think the 1 phase is very possible. But let's be honest here, like something barely getting a 1 phase is probably not what you should be using in this encounter. With that being said, for a primary weapon, the damage here against Kalli is very, very impressive, and therefore I'm going to give it a solid 6.5, nearly a 7 out of 10. But it's time to move on to the second encounter against Shuro Chi. For this, we have to do 1/6 of her health or the entire team wipes. And considering this gun does kind of get to its maximum damage after a while and we don't have a lot of time, there was definitely some concern. But as you can see, it is capable of getting that Shuro Chi damage threshold. And that's, again, for a primary weapon, pretty darn impressive. Now, in this encounter, you have a lot more adds to deal with, and this weapon's shortcomings against those adds does become a little bit more apparent. When everything is going well and you are popping off and you're feeling like you can't miss a shot, it works out pretty darn well. But again, a lot of the time, because it's so slow firing and it doesn't have anything to spread around its damage like explosive rounds, for example, it does suffer a little bit against those adds. Oh, and also in the very final damage phase where you have a little bit more health than usual, we were also reminded of its shortcomings. Yes, it's able to reach that damage threshold, but if your teammates decide to not jump in your well for some reason and you just miss out on a little bit of damage, yeah, it's not going to end well, so maybe you get the stun for that final encounter. In any event, pretty good against the boss, especially considering it's a primary. Decent, but not good against the adds. For this one, I'm going to give it another 6.5, nearly a 7 out of 10. But moving on from there, we have the next encounter against Morgeth, and you know we going for that one phase. Now again, in the beginning encounter, you deal with a bunch of adds, and it's the same old story. It's not bad, but it's not great. So how's it do against Morgeth? Now this one, we went in with very high expectations. I mean, this thing nearly one-phased Kalli, and Kalli is one of the harder bosses within this raid. She has a ton of health, but as you can see against Morgeth, it really struggled, and we ended up not actually getting the one phase. The reason being is because this thing relies on its precision damage so much, and Kalli has a much higher than normal precision damage threshold to her head. So the result is literally one of the only guns I've ever seen that's actually better against Kalli than it is against Morgeth. I'm honestly dumbstruck that this happened, but that's what happened. And so for that Morgeth encounter, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. It's below average here. But continuing on from there, the next encounter is the Vault encounter, and I always look forward to testing this because it gives you a really realistic depiction of how a weapon performs in a PvE environment. You're not fighting a big raid boss, you're just fighting a lot of adds and some very chunky knights that you do have to kill or they wipe your team, no pressure. Anyways, against the adds, it's fine. It's kind of actually a little bit better against the adds here because just the way the arena is laid out, you are able to engage them from a little bit further away, kind of like at scout rifle distance, so it's a little bit better than it has been in the previous encounters. But against those knights, oh my goodness, this thing struggles. Mainly because the way the knights move around, they definitely charge at you pretty fast. You're trying to stack damage on them, and God forbid they turn around. If a knight turns around, it apparently has no head hitbox. Like, it is the hardest thing to hit its head if it's not facing you. And so again, if you're not stacking that precision damage, you are really suffering. With multiple teammates, you can definitely finish them off, but it was really less than good. We actually ended up having someone throw on the Divinity, and it turns out with the Divinity, once you can just always hit those crits easily by hip firing at your maximum rate of fire, it was actually pretty good. So I mean, if one person wants to do that, it's definitely not bad there, but realistically, this is not a weapon you want to be using in the Vault encounter. It just like can't get its damage off fast enough, and so therefore I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10, just average. However, continuing on from there, we have the big daddy of damage phases against Riven. And you know, we going for that cheese. How much damage can this weapon deal in a short period of time? Well, as you can see, we just popped off shooting her in the mouth a ton, but as you can see by her health, it just was not able to get there. And the damage was less than impressive. As you can see here, pretty much barely reaching 200,000 damage, and there's a couple reasons for that. Firstly, Riven doesn't have the same crit multiplier that Kalli does. Also, you don't have a lot of time, so by the time this gun is doing its max damage, the damage phase is halfway over, and for the last part of the damage phase, Riven does close her mouth. So if you're swording her, you can finish her off still when she's doing that, but if you're using a gun that relies on precision damage like this one, yeah, it really does suffer. And so for Riven, I've got to give it like a 3 out of 10, just not a high damaging weapon here. But moving on from there, we have one more encounter, the Queen's Walk. And here at the beginning section, yeah, not so great when you're jumping out of the mouth. There's a ton of adds everywhere, and they have these things called shields, which are definitely not good for a kinetic weapon. But as you continue forward, it's not bad at sniping some of the Centurions, but as you get put inside, it's less than great here as well. Again, you have a very long range weapon and you are being swarmed with a bunch of close range adds, so it's really not great in frankly either section of the Queen's Walk, and therefore here I'm gonna give it another 4 out of 10. And so overall in this raid, this weapon certainly had potential against Kalli, and I think against those right type of enemies that you want to be engaging at longer ranges, sitting down and just getting crit after crit after crit, that's where this weapon actually performs quite well, and for a primary the damage is pretty darn impressive. But in a lot of scenarios, it really isn't what you're going to need. And so therefore I'm going to give it on average just a 5 out of 10 within this raid. And so guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.